Hey, Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. All really does help out the channel. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's first story comes from a throwaway account from the True Off My Chest subreddit. But before we do get into the story, I do want to give you a couple of warnings that it does contain talk of mental health issues, disassociation, infidelity, and generally it's pretty bleak towards the end. The OP claim that they're not going to be updating it any further. So as always, if you do want to skip it, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Now let's crack on with it. It's titled, "I'm considering divorcing my wife because she can't get over her mum dying." Yeah, I know. Everyone is fired up at the title and ready to tell me what an arsehole I am. For those people, I implore you to read the rest of this post before making a judgment. My 36 male wife's 33 female mother passed away 5 years ago from lung cancer. It was not a peaceful or easy death. Our lives understandably went on pause after the diagnosis, and we both spent a lot of time off working helping care for her mother. My wife had a pretty typical showing of grief at the time, cycling through different stages, same with our 3 kids. After she passed, however, my wife got really bad. I totally understand this. I can't say I know exactly what she went through because I haven't had a parent die, but I understand how devastated she was. For months after, she could barely function. I gently took over much of all responsibilities in the household and with the kids. She'd been attending grief counseling since the diagnosis and continued after the death. None of this is the problem. I endeavored to be as supportive as possible. She cried on my shoulder every night for months, and I just thought this was the worst of for better or worse. The problem is that after 5 years, she does not seem any better or more functional. She stopped grief counseling about 4 years ago and refused to go again, stating it would not help her and that nothing could. About a month before any major holiday, she will have a major downturn. In bed half the day, crying all day, does not want to interact with the family, does not have the energy to do anything around the house. This will go on every single day until about a week after the holiday ends. Every holiday is intense grief, just as much now as it was 5 years ago. October, November, December, and January, her mum's birthday month, every year is particularly bad. I am essentially without my wife and am a single parent to my 3 kids. Altogether, she's completely incapacitated by grief for about 6 months out of the year and has been for the past 5 years. When I say incapacitated, I mean incapacitated. When she is in the depths of her grief, she is completely incapable of intimacy with me or the kids. There is no cuddling, spending time with us, going on family outings. I don't have sex for half the year. I stopped asking her if she wants to talk about it because she can't get any words out between sobs if she tries. What hurts the most is that the kids have stopped asking or being concerned. If they see their mum in bed when they get home, they just go about their day and might casually mention, "Oh, mum is sad today," if their siblings or I ask where she is. I don't really seek affection with her anymore because they rarely get anything more than tears. I've discussed this with therapists, my parents, friends, etc., and I know all the rebuttals people have for this, so let me preempt them. She is unwilling to go back to therapy for grief counseling or to see a doctor for depression. Yes, I know she's severely depressed. I can't force her to go to the doctor. I've tried so much. Yes, it really is just as intense as it was 5 years ago. No, I never tell her to get over it or blow her off. On my worst days, I just give space and leave her be. Most days, I try to offer her some comfort. If you want to judge me for leaving her alone, whatever, but know that I feel like I essentially have caretaker fatigue at this point. No, she does not have a history of depression, but she does have ADHD. I don't know if that's relevant. I feel like my wife died when her mum died. I'll do anything to get her back, even a small piece of her, but she doesn't seem willing or able to move past her mum's death. I feel awful for considering a divorce, but I don't know what else to do. That is just incredibly sad, and it just sounds like she's had a complete mental break here. And of course, I don't judge OP for feeling the way that they're feeling. Of course, you're going to have all these thoughts going in your mind. You can't have your children living their lives like this at the same time, as well as yourself. But she clearly needs some sort of medical intervention of some sort. You said yourself that you just want a piece of her back. So she's not been like this before. It's only due to this event that's caused this. And I just find it incredibly sad. And I can already see on some of the top comments already that people are mentioning prolonged grief disorder therapy. And I know OP's going for a bad time. Wife's going for an awful time as well. But whenever we got stories with kids involved, it always breaks my heart about what they're going through at the same time, how they're feeling, what they're thinking. You know, they've lost their grandma. They've pretty much lost their mum at this point in time. They're seeing all this. They're feeling all this. They're watching OP struggling with this at the same time. It must be traumatizing for them at the same time. And at what point does the decision have to be made that's in their best interest, as well as yourself, of course? But Away Enthusiasm says you should tell her that things are coming to an end if she's not willing to at least try. There were some replies that said talking about doing it around Christmas time, etc. To which Wishes Loves Justice replies to that and says no. Why should him and the kids face another lonely Christmas this way? She's being very unfair to them. It's not only her mental health being impacted, she's causing her children and husband misery by forcing them to live like that. She has a responsibility to each of them. Whilst yes, she might be grieving the loss of time spent with her mother, these poor children aren't getting any nice memories of their own. It's a complete tragedy. She needs to be shaken to her core and choose. Yes, she can choose to be miserable for the rest of her life, but she doesn't get to choose that for her husband and children. It's Christmas, and they should be enjoying it. Amber says, my brother spiraled into a very dangerous alcoholic bender after our grandmother passed away. It lasted 2 to 3 years and ended with him in the hospital with early stage cirrhosis and the need to be on a ventilator to breathe for him at the age of 27. Between the episode and him checking into rehab, I wrote him a long letter, basically pleading him to stop and get help. One of the biggest points I felt I had to make, and I'm almost positive was the biggest thing to convince him to get help, was telling him what he was doing in no way honored her memory. What your wife is doing at this point is not at all honoring the memory of her mother. Has anyone said anything to her like this? That what she is doing is actually the opposite of honoring her memory when she should be living her life as she would if her mum was still alive and trying to make her proud. And that comment just reminded me of how my mum, well, she's with us and we knew she was going to be passing away, and the words that she said to me, and she said that she just wants me to go and live my life. Don't be grieving me, she said. I don't want that for you. I want you to be happy and continue to live your life the best way you can, really. And that always sticks with me in times of when I'm feeling a bit down about things. You know, occasionally you sit there and you think, shit, I ain't got my parents no more. You know, they're not here. So I always think back to those words, and it always gives me some comfort, you know, and the fact that she said she'd haunt me if I do start grieving about it. She's a cheeky so-and-so. But Stella Girl says, funeral director here. This is very complicated and prolonged grief. She does need medical help at this point. I take the suggestion of calling EMS during her next breakdown. Her grief is making her a non-functioning person. Unfortunately, untimely demises are a part of life. It's a shame it happened to her mum, but she needs someone to help guide her out of the dark and find a way to not just cope, but become fully functioning again. Best of luck to you, OP. Hope your family can find its peace again. And one more comment from Sparkly Viking, who says, I won't put the kids or myself through this anymore. You have chosen grief and solitude over being a mother and a partner. And after half a decade worth of ruined holidays, ruined relationships and misery, I'm saying stop. No one can force you to work through this, but I won't be forced to live like this. Walk away. So OP's first update comes in and says, I posted a few days ago. You can check my profile for that post. I just kind of threw that post together as a stream of consciousness vent on my break at work. I didn't go back and look at it until later because I just assumed it would get buried since I've never had anything I posted get any major attention. And honestly, I thought I was going to get eviscerated in the comments for being insensitive or uncaring. I was floored by the number of responses and really kind DMs I got and felt a little overwhelmed at the idea of responding to them all, so I figured I would post an update here. A few people mentioned I should have her involuntarily admitted to a medical facility. I didn't mention in the original post, but I did ask our family doctor about that maybe a year ago. And he told me that unless she is a threat to herself or others, it's unlikely to happen. I looked this up myself as well, and that appears to be true for the state we live in. I do agree that she needs medical treatment. I suspect that during her year of grief counselling after her mum's death, she was not honest with her counsellor. I have a distinctly sad memory of her coming home after one of her last sessions and telling me that her counsellor said she probably wouldn't need to go for much longer. Then she went and lay down on the bed and cried. I haven't been able to convince her to go back to counselling. However, I'm glad I posted to Reddit because somehow I hadn't really considered that she might need more intensive treatment than just counselling. I also saw one comment that scared the hell out of me, that she may do something drastic if I give her a divorce ultimatum. With those things in mind, I don't think that doing that is the way to go. Instead, I'm planning to write her a letter explaining how we need her back, and that we love her and care for her deeply, but she needs more help than we can provide alone, and tell her that she needs to go to the doctor and be honest about what she's been going through. Thank you for your advice, everyone. OP's second update. I wasn't planning to post again, but got a lot of supportive messages asking for an update, so here we go. My soon-to-be ex-wife has completely lost her fucking mind. After my last post, I spent a couple of days writing the letter to her. In it, I explained that the kids and I love her dearly, and that we're concerned for her. I outlined all the worrying behavior and told her that I believe she needs to seek additional medical care. I explained that it sounded like she had complex grief. Thank you everyone who pointed that out. And that the grief therapy she went to years ago was insufficient to help her get through it. I did not say anything about potentially divorcing her, but did say that the kids can't continue to live in their current situation. It was a long letter and I don't really feel like transcribing it here. I read the letter to her the same night I finished writing it, after the kids had gone to bed. After I finished reading, she just stared right through me. 1,000-yard stare, for probably 15 minutes, and finally stood up and started walking to the door. I panicked and tried to stop her. Asked her where she was going. Can we talk about this? I'm concerned for your safety. She rolled her eyes at me and said in the coldest voice I've ever heard her use, I hope when your parents die, someone doesn't tell you to get over it. After that, I didn't try to stop her. I just let her go. I was pissed off for maybe 5 minutes before the panic set back in. I legitimately thought she was going to end herself. I checked my phone and she had turned her location off. I called and texted probably 50 times over the next hour, begging her to at least let me know she was okay and that she wasn't going to do something drastic. Right before I was about to call the police, I got a call from her phone. I answered immediately, and before I could get much of anything in, a man's voice told me, she's fine, but she doesn't want to talk to you, and hung up. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience at the time. I had no idea what the fuck was going on. I almost called the cops anyway, but I was disassociating hard and talked myself out of it. I kept calling her phone all night, but no one picked up again. After about 2 a.m, it started going straight to voicemail. I barely slept that night. When I woke up the next day, she wasn't home. I took the kids to school and daycare. I normally do this, and my wife is normally still asleep while I do, so thank God they didn't ask where mum was. I tried calling my wife's phone more all morning, but still voicemail. I called her office and asked if she was at work, and then they told me she had called in sick. I called in sick to work as well, and basically just sat on my couch, trying to get a hold of her, while being a nervous wreck. I called my mum as well, and asked if she could pick up the kids from school today and watch them overnight. I didn't tell her everything that was going on yet, just that something had come up and that was urgent and I needed some help. My wife walked in the door sometime after 4 p.m. I tried to hug her and she shied away from me. I asked her where she'd been. No response, just a blank stare. I asked her who had called me from her phone. No response, blank stare. At this point I was frustrated and told her that if she didn't want to explain what was going on, she could get the fuck out. I regret saying it that way now, but holy shit was I frustrated. So she started talking, but it was like I was talking to a text-to-speech AI with her voice. No emotion, totally flat, almost annoyed. She told me that she had gone to her friend John's, fake name house. I had no idea who the fuck John was and asked her to explain further. Over a 2-hour or so conversation where I had to pry details out of her. I got most of the story. She was answering like a lawyer. Very basic answers, no details or context outside of exactly what I was asking her. Basically, John is a co-worker. I've met the dude once or twice at the office party type events, but never really talked to him. I never saw him hanging out with my wife or showing interest in her, but apparently over the last year or so, she's been spilling all her feelings about her grief over her mum's death to him, and he's been comforting her. He had a parent die from cancer too, so I guess she felt they had a connection she didn't have with me. After I read the letter, she said she realized that I don't care about her or her mum's death, and went to John's house to talk and be comforted. I flat out asked her if she was having an affair with him, and she told me no. I asked her why she never mentioned why she was close friends with this unknown guy, and she told me it was none of my business. I asked her if anything happened between them while she was there, and she says they cuddled and he held her while she cried. I asked to see her phone to check messages between them, and she refused. I couldn't get much more detail out of her about the whole situation, so when she went to take a shower, I tried to check her phone. She had changed her passcode. I grabbed her iPad, which still had my thumbprint biometric signature in it, and checked there. I left the house with the iPad to look for evidence while she was in the shower. I did not immediately see any messages to or from a John, but after digging briefly, I found it. She had put him in as Stacy in her contacts, but it was obviously him. There were texts going back well over a year. A lot of her talking about her mum, a lot of him comforting her, a lot of him telling her I don't really care about her and that he would never treat her that way if they were married. All of her replies were in agreement. A lot of texts from her complaining about me, a lot of him trash talking me. The night she left, she had texted him, "Fuck it, I'm on my way over if the offer is still there," followed by an immediate yes reply. Then the next morning, a text from her to him saying, "If he asks, we just talked." I threw up out my car door in a Walmart parking lot for 20 minutes. I came home and found her on the couch on her phone, seemingly unconcerned or unaware I had even left. I told her that I knew and that she needed to leave. Again, she just stared at me for a while, not responding, until I got aggravated and told her to get the fuck out of the house. She immediately got up and told me John was right about you, and left. I haven't seen her since. I told the kids she went to visit her parents. I don't know what to tell them, but I have to tell them something soon. I don't really even know what to do. Ostensibly, I need to divorce her, but going through custody, child support, etc. is dizzying. I feel paralyzed and haven't made a move yet. I know she's lost her mind and this is probably some kind of psychotic break, but I just can't care anymore. I put on a brave, numb face to go to work, then for my kids at night, and then cry after they go to bed until I fall asleep. I feel like my life is essentially over. I do feel like John took advantage of her vulnerability, but I don't even want to bother trying to get her to see that he's a predator. She chose this over a fucking family that are stuck with her. I don't think I'll be posting any more updates or logging into this account anymore. Now, obviously, I don't know the full ins and outs as always, but the feeling that I got when OP read the letter, she messaged this John guy and said, if the offer's still there, I'm in sort of thing. It felt like she was building up to that point for a very long time, like just waiting for that excuse to do it. And whatever happens going forward, OP, I really do wish you the best. I hope you lean on any support that you got around you. And, I know it gets mentioned all the time on Reddit, but I hope you and, your children seek the support of a therapist at the same time. There is a lot going on for you and the children and what you have been through in the way that you've been supportive and then have this all thrown back in your face at the same time. You've been dealing with this for 5 years now to be betrayed like this. And I imagine a lot of the comments are going to say about getting your ducks in a row and talking to a lawyer as soon as possible at the same time. And I think it's one of those stories, and I always feel bad saying it because obviously OP is not going to be feeling like that right now. But they're going to be able to build their life back up and not have 6 months of the year dealing with what they were doing. Their children are not going to be dealing with that at the same time as well. But the top comment on this one said, "Holy shit. I remember reading OP's first post. I was so heartbroken for him. The way he wrote his post, he seemed like a genuinely concerned husband who was at the end of his very, very long rope. But hot damn did I not see this one going the way it did. OP is going to need a lot of support and a good therapist to get through all of the emotions this is going to bring. On one hand, he's going to feel that sweet, sweet relief that he no longer has to tiptoe around his wife for months at a time, multiple times a year, and shield his children from her, as he has been for the past 5 years. But on the other hand, She's put him through hell for 5 years. And for what? He did everything right and she still cheated on him. He was supportive, kind, a great dad. He gave her space. He sought out family, friends, and therapists to find out how to support her better. He did all his research, followed all the rules, and it still wasn't enough. Anger, resentment, and self-doubt and blame are going to show up to this party all at once. He's got a struggle ahead of him for sure, but hopefully he finds peace with the time spent apart from her. Once the negative emotions fade, I hope he starts to feel free and realizes he can finally live his life the way he wants to, instead of being a prisoner of her grief. That grief is no longer his problem. But now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What would you say to OP? What advice could you give to OP? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for joining us today, getting involved in the stories, showing love, not just towards me, but towards each other down in the comments, and the OPs of the stories as well. It's always absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for doing so. And hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.